and now I'm recording my full screen, and then I'll put this up, and then Dr. Rustkamp can share the link out to all of you. So I've come with questions. This is by far one of my favorite apps, and it's called Evernote. And I don't know if you've learned about Evernote or talked about Evernote, but Evernote is my personal notebook, diary, note taker, whatever you want to call it, aggregation point. I'm going to show you what I can do with Evernote. I pay for the premium version, which lets me present. This is presenter mode, so I can get rid of all my crap on my screen. Sorry, all my stuff on my screen. And I can go from there. But I have 4 questions for you, and so how do you keep organized in this digital life? There's tons and tons of ways. There's tons and tons of apps, and I'm going to show you some of those. And I would like for you to tell me, we've looked at that, we've talked about that, whatever, because my goal is for you to come up with 1 thing or 2 things that you haven't ever seen before. And again, you don't have to add on to what you're already doing. That's not the point. To take something, learn it, but I tell teachers, find 2 or 3 things, or maybe 1 thing every year, and change what you're doing. Just change it up and try it out. See how it goes. So it's more of an embedded tool. Have you looked at the SAMR model?
Yes.
Okay.
I have, but I haven't talked with them. Go ahead and share.
You guys talked
tech
about the SAMR model at all?
Tech class.
Some of you have, some of you haven't?
Yeah, go ahead and share.
Yes? Okay. We'll get to that in a minute. So what are some ways to help communicate to parents and teachers? That's huge, especially if you're an elementary teachers. See, tons of you. How are you going to communicate? You got to find a way. If you're music ed, find a way to get your parents involved, because if you can get your parents involved in music ed, behind you, supporting you in the classroom, boy, more power to you. What are some ways to engage students in the classroom using technology tools? There's tons of them. I could spend hours talking about different tools to engage. So for secondary, where are we at here? What do we have? What do we have? Music, language arts, social science, music, social science, physical ed. So there's tons and tons of tools out there. iPad, iPod, laptops, whatever. And then what are some ways to learn about new technologies? How do you keep up? Dr. Rustkamp and I were just talking. It's crazy out there. How do you keep up with what's going on? I don't. Frankly, I don't. I have a hard enough time keeping up with some of my staff or whatever. So that's what my framework is today. And like I said, if we get to a point where you're like, we've learned about all these things, and maybe you have, we'll move on to something else, because I've got lots and lots of stuff. So just because I don't have it listed here doesn't mean I don't have a tool belt of stuff. And that's another thing. Build a little tool belt, and it's going to change. So I will say that too. When you think of a Web 2.0 tool that you've recently looked at, whatever that may be, I will almost bet you in 6 months it's going to look different. If it's a web tool on the web, so they're always changing stuff, right? Reprogramming things. Look at Google. If you're looking at Google and you're using Google tools, Google constantly does updates to their servers and constantly gives you something fresh every so often. It just changes, and it freaks people out. Well, when I see it change, I read about it. Why did they do that? What's the purpose? And you learn a lot about why they do that stuff. So Evernote is my digital notebook, right? I still carry a notebook around. I take notes. You know what research tells us about note-taking? Anybody? That written notes, you remember more than you typed the notes. I'm serious. I just read that today. So, so that's a tool. I think using pen and paper is not an outdated tool. It's not. But the SAMR model. Oh, I was going to show you this. So any note I type, and these are more for me. This is not something I really share. I keep stuff of my kids in here. I keep stuff when I aggregate web pages. So I can just come up here. It's just like Google. I can come up here and I can search my notes. So I know I've got something about my son Jaron, and it's going to find his name. And look at that's an award he won. It was in the paper, and it will highlight the words from that scanned image in the paper, so you can see what's highlighted. So anything that I do, I don't remember where I put stuff. I've got my computer to do that for me, right? So social, I got some stuff on social media, and I share this with kids. Here's how easily that you could get hacked. And this is just stuff I read, right? And I share this with people. You know, how hackable is your life? And it's an infographic that talks about that. What's the easiest way to get hacked? 100,000 virus threats every day. It's crazy what people are doing out there. So I've got stuff on social media. The internet knows more about you than you think. What can they do with your name, date of birth, and address? And I share this with kids because kids, like 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they think when they get a phone, they just download Facebook and YouTube and all this fun stuff, but they don't think about what's happening in the background. And I hope you guys do, because you're going to be out there soon in the teaching profession, and I hope you don't have any what I call digital dirt, because it'll come back to haunt you. So I use Evernote for all this stuff. I can aggregate web pages, and I have tons and tons of notebooks in here that I keep track of all my things. And it's synced back to my devices. So when I crack my screen, my Evernote will still be on here. So let's go back to this. And so when you think about using technology, this is something that came out, I would say, within the last couple years. It's called SAMR, S-A-M-R. It's called the SAMR model. And I know some of you have heard about it, but if you haven't, for those of you that haven't, you might take some time, just Google SAMR, and you'll come up with this website. And it just talks about how computer technology is used and how that looks. So not only does it give you, so this is the lowest level, and as you go down the list, you're going to get more in depth with the technology that's being used. So when you talk about substitution, taking something that you're already doing and then printing out a worksheet or finishing it or handing it in online or whatever, that's just kind of a substitution. Instead of handing it to the teacher, they just hand it in online. Okay, doing the same task, just in a different way. Then you start doing some other things, taking a quiz online, right, versus taking a paper pencil test. Then you get up to where you're starting to transform teaching and learning by actually adapting. And I'm going to show you some of this software that does some of this stuff down here. And so you can kind of take a look at how that looks when you talk about creating a book report, but making it look a little different. So I have like 45 more minutes, so this is going to go really, really fast. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's just a little bit of background. That's where I'm coming from. So any questions on anything I've talked about so far?
So if you, several of you have taken the tech class, how many of you have had the tech class so far? Okay, some of you will take it. And the SAMR model is where they address that.
So this is our homepage, and it's wide open to anybody. So wherever you go, whenever you leave Peru State College, wherever job you go, ESUs are there to serve you. So educational service units in Nebraska are there to serve you. So I would seek out your people, and if you talk about technology, I'm your person. If you talk about NISA testing or MAPS testing, then we have Jen and Suzanne that are there to talk to you, and we have professional development. That's Jen and Suzanne. If you go into early childhood or something like that, we have Ellen, who's the special ed director, and we're supposed to know the answers. We know people that know the answers. So if we don't know the answer, I will tell you, give me a few days and I'll get back to you, because I can find you an answer. And so this is our web page, but more importantly, we've started, and have you shown them this?
It was on their list.
Okay.
It's worth
Yeah.
repeating. Yeah.
So I can blow this up. Again, this is another thing. It's just a simple click of a button with a Mac, and I can blow up my screen, and I'm done. We have wikis, and wikis are a quick way to develop web pages. I try to tell teachers, if you don't have some type of web presence out there, try to figure out a way to make it happen. Wikis are easy. Google Sites are easy. And it's very simple to do. So we have all these wikis. And what they are, basically, we have groups of teachers come into our service unit in Auburn, and we talk about specific cadres that have to do with all these teachers. So you get a group of language arts teachers in our conference room, for example, and we give you time to talk about what's happening in your schools, time to converse and talk about what technologies you're using, talk about NISA testing, talk about best practices, talk about student engagement, whatever the topics are. We do that 2 or 3 times a year depending on scheduling, because we do a lot of these all throughout the year. So for example, I'm not a music person, but I know there's a music person in here. We just recently held our music cadre. And so they will link you to an external web page on Wikispaces. Wikispaces is a place that hosts web pages for free. You can sign up with a free account. You can go, if you do it through education, go to Educational Wikispaces, and it's a lot easier than if you just go to wikispaces.com. The nice thing about Wikispaces is, like, Suzanne can create the space, and then she can make me a collaborator, or Jen a collaborator, or Ellen a collaborator, and we can all add content without having her approval. So we put the dates over here, and I'm going to see if I can find this, because I think this is just awesome. Again, I don't know music. Jen doesn't know music. Suzanne doesn't know music, so we try to find a professional out there that can kind of do music. And this guy's name is Jeff Ingram, and he's from ESU 3. So like I said, we have people that we can get people in contact with that talks about music. So we had Jeff come down, and he shared with our music people some stuff that he's doing with schools and how that looks. For math, we have a guy by the name of Lenny Vermont. For social studies, we have the guy from the ND, like James, I think is his name. This is not the right one. I don't know if I can find it. I'm not going to try to sit here and I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I might just plug this one in because I have it up. So one thing he showed us is how do we get kids into music, that have a hard time playing instruments. And he went to a high school, and he had these kids sitting around the lunch table, and I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I just think this is awesome. We're talking about taking live instruments. They're all playing an iPad. They're all hooked to a mixer, and they're playing. And I'm just going to play a little bit of it. But this is amazing. Hopefully it plays. And think about whatever you teach. Stuff you can do with this is crazy. Come on. May not. This is all done on iPads. No musical. You see the kid playing the drums? The guy's over here playing guitar. He's playing drums. He's the singer. Pre-recorded all of his voice. do a mashup of a bunch of different songs. It's like a 5-minute thing. You give kids an iPad, look what they can do. I think that rocks. You know, I think that's awesome. And I don't know, you know, obviously they did a little practicing before they put all their stuff together, but the point is that amazing. Taking a tool that I can already do, play a drum, play a guitar, sing, taking something I can already do, and using technology to accomplish that goal. Pretty cool.
I heard that just last week that a UNL music professor, their entire